Hello and welcome to Direct Approach with Wayne Moorehead, an exclusive podcast by Direct Selling News, where host Wayne interviews the channel's leading corporate executives to provide timely insights and relevant takeaways to help you grow and evolve your businesses. Today, Wayne is joined by Russ Fletcher, Chief Executive Officer at Xyngular. In this episode of Direct Approach, Russ, who has an undergrad in mechanical engineering from MIT and a master's from BYU, talks about how he uses the Agile methodology as a framework for project management, alignment, and accountability. He also shares what he has borrowed from the software world to test products and ideas. And he talks about the value of the daily stand-up and shares 3 important questions to ask your team to keep everyone moving forward together. Plus, Wayne and Russ delve into how direct selling is changing and why even the terminology we use should be reconsidered. Founded in 2009, Xyngular is a health and wellness-focused company that offers nutritional supplements to meet a growing number of health and weight loss solutions. It has landed on the DSN Best Places to Work list 5 times, and in 2022, it ranked number 51 on the DSN Global 100 list with $153 million in annual revenue. Russ was named CEO of Xyngular in 2017 after holding director and VP level positions at Zango and Nu Skin, along with consulting inside and outside of the channel. Before joining Xyngular, he became a nationally recognized authority on the Agile software development methodology and has consulted with companies and organizations including Harvard University and the federal government. He was named Utah Business Magazine CEO of the Year in 2020, and he is a staunch believer in balancing work with play. Before we begin the interview, a reminder that we are just 1 week away from the fall DSU event taking place Thursday, October 6th and Friday, October 7th at the Irving Convention Center in Irving, Texas, located just a few minutes away from DFW Airport. In 20 plus years of hosting educational events, this DSU is absolutely going to be one for the books. We are energized and humbled at the interest in this event. The hotel room block has sold out, and 100 plus have pre-registered for the in-person only Amazon and e-commerce strategies workshop that forced a schedule change to move locations to the main ballroom to accommodate demand Thursday, October 6th, following DSU General Session. Why? The channel's changing. How and where we sell is changing. The wants and needs of the field and customer behaviors are changing. The way we work is changing. This is a critical time for executives in the direct selling channel to learn what's working and what's not, and most importantly, what's next for the channel. DSU is a 2-day masterclass for direct selling corporate executives to spend uninterrupted time working on your business and networking with your peers. Register you and your team today to be a part of this must-attend DSU Fall event. If you absolutely cannot make it in person, we encourage you to register as a virtual attendee. The limited time replays will only be available to those who are registered for the event by October 6th. Register for both DSU and the Amazon and e-commerce workshop today at dsu2022.com. Before we begin, DSN is honored to be supported by industry suppliers that partner with companies across the channel to help enhance, streamline, and grow their businesses. This episode's sponsors are Nexio and InfoTrax. Nexio was purpose-built for direct and social selling companies. The robust software platform allows businesses with complex risk profiles to navigate the intricacies of payments and turn them into a strategic asset. From payouts to fraud protection to multi-currency to global expansion and more, Nexio has the tools you need to succeed. Learn more at nex.io. That's nex.io. And commissions payments and earnings go to real people with real needs, goals, struggles, and dreams. InfoTrax Systems believes that honest direct selling companies have a responsibility to be successful and efficient so that they can continue to provide those valuable dollars and cents to the people who need them in their lives. Instead of seeing commissions management as a necessary evil when running a business, InfoTrax invites all direct sales companies to take a step back and really consider why they are paying commissions. InfoTrax helps direct sales companies optimize, gain insight, and help change people's lives. That's why good direct sales companies pay commissions. That's why InfoTrax helps them do it right. Learn more at infotrax.com. FOTRAXSYS.com. And now, please help me welcome your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today's guest, Russ Fletcher, Chief Executive Officer at Xyngular.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wayne Moorehead. And today I am joined by another incredible direct selling leader and brilliant strategist, CEO of Xyngular, Russ Fletcher. Russ, thank you so much for being here.
Honored, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed all of our interactions together over the years. We've had the chance, or I've had the opportunity to work on a project or two with you, and I've learned a lot from you. Again, a really great mind, one of the great minds here in direct selling, and so this is a real pleasure for me. And you've had a really, really impressive career stretching all the way back to your education, undergrad at MIT, MBA at the Marriott School, go Cougars, and then beginning your career in management consulting. And so I'd love for you to take us kind of through that path a little bit of how you went from management consulting and then into direct selling. You had a couple stints there and ultimately to your role there at Xyngular.
Interestingly enough, management consulting, I thought I was going to be the next engineer for NASA. That was my dream coming out of MIT. My major was mechanical engineering. I thought, NASA or maybe for Ford, I could design the next Mustang. And you know what the jobs that they hire starting engineers are? Well, Ford offered me a job designing door hinges.
Wow, that's exciting.
That wasn't so exciting. I didn't want to do that. I actually went to work for a little boutique consulting firm in Boston and just fell in love with the idea of consulting because consulting means you get to learn so many new things. It paid me to learn about their business and then to help them get better. I love learning. I'm passionate about learning. I love doing new things. And so that just fit me like a glove. And I've done that so often, in between stints as a corporate employee, I always end up going back to consulting. And I think one of my loves is teaching, coaching, and consulting. So I did that for years. I've consulted all over the world. For 2 years, I lived in Washington, D.C. I consulted in and out of the federal government.
And then, so what led you into direct selling? Again, I know you had a couple stints there. You've kind of toggled in and out, much as myself. But
so my first job in direct selling, I was working for a company here in Utah, and I was getting my master's degree from BYU. Go Cougars!
Go Cougars!
And I was working for a small software company that I didn't really enjoy. And a friend of mine in the program was working for New Skin. And he came to me and he said, "Hey, I have an IT job available at New Skin. Would you be interested in taking it?" And I took it. And I worked there for almost 2 years. And that was my first foray into direct sales. I left there to go back into consulting, and sort of been in and out of the industry ever since. I did consulting for a number of smaller network marketing companies and even some larger ones, and eventually found my way into Xyngular. I worked there for 3.5 years, and when I think about the passions in my life, coaching and helping people are right at the top of the list. And in network marketing, you kind of get to do both.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you've definitely been developed an amazing reputation for both those. I know a lot of people that have worked with you on kind of the client side, and then they're at Xyngular, and they've shared how much they love working with you, learning from you, and kind of that culture that you've helped to create there. And I'd love to start off by talking not so much what you do there at Xyngular, but how you do it. So you are Harvard trained in Agile, and which traditionally is associated with software development, but you've really brought it into the company and used it as a framework and a methodology to really align the entire company and keep everybody kind of marching to the same beat. Can you talk a little bit about why you've brought it in and extended it throughout the entire organization?
Sure. Just a clarification. I trained Harvard. They
But you
didn't train
trained
me.
Harvard. Okay,
I wanna make
sorry.
that-
Wow, that's even more impressive.
That's one of those name dropping things, right? I
Yeah.
got to teach at Harvard. The reason I say that is because that actually was one of the places where I learned the power of being able to use the Agile methodology, not just in IT. So Agile development methodology was started with software development, and that's when I became familiar with it. And as it has evolved, I predicted 10 years ago or more that someday it would just be how we do project management. There would no longer be project management and Agile. It would just be, this is how you manage your project. We're not there yet, but that we're headed in that direction. And when I got to here to Xyngular, one of the things that I was looking for was to see the seeds of Agile in the culture, in the people. What do I mean by that? At its core, Agile is a philosophy. It's not just a set of practices that are appropriate for IT. It's a way of thinking. And the first most basic way of thinking is you have to think like what we call a self-organized team. What does a self-organized team mean? Well, think about it like this. How do most teams work? You have a boss, and the boss assigns out things for the people on the team to work on. And when they're done with that, they return and he gives them more things to do. And if you're proficient at getting things done, then you get promoted and you get to be responsible for more things. That's how most things work. So the boss spends almost all of his time in resource allocation. Who's available on my team and what am I going to have them do? In an Agile environment, the self-organizing team says, rather than doing that, a project owner or a visionary gives to the team an amount of work and says to the team, you figure out how to get it done. You organize yourself around the work. I'm not telling you this person does this and this person does this and this person does this. Collaborate, figure out how to get this done. And then when you're done with this portion of it, show me. And we'll work together on defining the next portion of it. That's an entirely different paradigm for the way teams work. And if you don't have the seeds of self-organization, then you can't do it. So for the first year or so that I was here, I was looking for people who could fit that mold. And as soon as I saw it, I said, okay. And it turned out to be a marketing team. And we started with the marketing team here and just started using these principles of Agile. And then we ballooned from there. I remember that moment very clearly. I started grinning in a meeting, and one of my other executives looked at me and said, "What's so funny?" And I said, "They're ready. This is a team that can handle this. Let's get started. Let's start using this." And then later, when we expanded it to more teams, I had that same sort of almost Cheshire cat grin, like, "Ooh, I'm about to do something with you that's going to be really fun, but you have no idea what you're in for." It's been really valuable. We've rolled it out now completely across the whole organization. And when people come here, they're amazed at both how we do it and how the challenges of it, but also the benefits of it.
So can you list some of those primary benefits that you've found taking this approach, the Agile approach versus a more traditional? Is it, increasing speed, capacity? What have you found to be those great advantages?
Well, the openness is first and foremost amazing. So we do a thing that we call release planning, where we get everyone at the company that's not in the call center, every professional level person in the company, we take them offsite for 2 days, and we plan the next 4 months of work. And we do it very low tech, Post-it notes up on the wall, right? And what ends up happening is we define corporate priorities, and then they run and figure out what those priorities have to do with their teams. Now imagine that a marketing team says, all right, in this 2-week period, we need this from IT to be successful. And they go over and they look at the IT board, and IT doesn't have it in that 2-week period. So now they're having a dialogue about when am I going to get that? And they're adjusting their plans on the fly. You can't buy that level of communication. Sure. It's phenomenal. And because of that level of buy-in at the corporate level for strategic direction, for communication, it's palpable. And when people leave here, for example, we had a marketing professional leave some years ago. And within a matter of weeks, she called me and she's like, "So how did you do that release planning thing? Because I think that was very valuable and I want to try it here. So that's clearly the level of cross-team communication, of buy-in at the corporate level, right down to the when am I going to get this from your team? That's part of Agile. Yes, we get increased speed. Yes, we get better throughput. Those kinds of sort of almost manufacturing KPIs, right? Is this team producing widgets? Well, what does the marketing team produce? Are they producing assets? What does the sales team produce? Are they producing relationships? I mean, it's hard to measure, but the fact that those teams are collaborating so much more completely than they would otherwise, that again, hard to measure, but very palpable.
Yeah, so more of that kind of real-time collaboration and prioritization, even reprioritization, allows you to move and react a lot quicker, it seems like, than kind of getting together, for QBRs or something like that.
Well, so in a traditional setting, so much of the elaboration of things just takes so long.
Yeah.
We're going to do OKRs. Okay, we're going to do OKRs. Let's sit down and do our key requirements and our KPIs, our key metrics, right? Well, we're going to elaborate that for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Meanwhile, we could define one simple thing and get moving during those 6 to 8 weeks while we're figuring out the next things. How many times have you worked on a project or tried a strategic plan and you got into it and it was wrong? Right. So you didn't know that until after you'd already gathered months of requirements and you'd already delivered, the beginnings of all kinds of things, and then you realize we made a mistake. One of the things that Agile provides us is the luxury of failure. We can say, we don't promise success. What we promise is speed. We'll either succeed or fail quickly. And if you think failing quickly sounds daunting, try failing slowly. You'd much rather fail quickly and be able to, switch paths. So speed is vital. The communication is really important. The level of respect across the various teams goes way up.
I think it's fascinating that you ended up starting, as you mentioned, in the marketing department, that they seemed like, because of an individual, they seemed like the one that was kind of most ready to start rolling Agile out. Again, as we kind of mentioned, this is usually more associated with more of kind of the hard skill, the more objective functions, kind of the yes or no, the right or wrong. I'm curious how it functioned, how it worked. Did it take a little bit of extra effort rolling it out into one of those more kind of subjective functions, the softer functions like marketing?
Well, so theoretically, anything you can measure should fit. How do you measure the quality of a marketing campaign? It's the single biggest challenge in marketing is attribution, right? Is this thing that we did, is that what produced the sales growth, or was it something else, right?
Right.
And so if you're measuring only your success by what you can correctly give attribution to, you don't measure that primarily. You're measuring throughput and you're measuring acceptance criteria from the perspective of the user. So in Agile, you have what we call a product owner, and they're a proxy for your end user. So if we're rolling out a campaign for our distributor field, for example, someone internally is going to act as a proxy for them. And the only thing they're measuring is, do we think they'll like it? That seems basic, but if we're not making their lives better, what are we doing? And so that person has to sit there and be that sounding board, be that proxy for the field. And in marketing, that's a challenge, but it's not an insurmountable challenge. So we have what we call these 2-week sprints. That's what we call them, sprints. So 2 weeks is our measure. At the end of 2 weeks, we have a demo. And the demo says, this is what we said we were going to do. Did we meet your expectations? If the answer is that they didn't meet the product owner's expectations, well, what have you lost? 2 weeks. It's not the end of the world. If they do, then we can release it. If they haven't, then we go back to the drawing board. But at the end of the day, losing 2 weeks on a potential minor deliverable versus losing 6 months or 8 months on a major deliverable, I'll take that all day.
Yeah.
And so yes, it's more subjective in terms of the product owner trying to say, will our field buy into this. Some of the things we do with that is we use beta groups. That's a term from software world. But we form these user communities and we release things to them ahead of time and say, do you like this campaign? Do you like this product? Do you like this, the agenda for this event? And they get a chance to weigh in those 2-week increments. It's pretty
that's
powerful.
great. Yeah, it sounds like it. So what are some of the things a company could do now, maybe that isn't going to go out and do an official, Agile training or certification? What are some ways they could put some of the principles into place, a little more quickly than going through or sending somebody through an official training?
Well, I mean, the first thing I always suggest to people is real basic. The most basic Agile practice is what's called the daily stand-up. Years ago, I worked with an executive, before I ever heard the term Agile, I worked with an executive from General Foods. And he was the head of General Foods for all of Europe. And he said he had his daily touch and go. That's what he called it, touch and go meeting. So his daily touch and go was he had his direct reports in his office every day. And he was the head of General Foods for all of Europe. So these were, large divisions that were reporting to him. And they would simply say, today, our primary objective is this. This is what it was yesterday. This is how we did. This is what it is today. And that's the basic of the daily stand-up. You ask and answer 3 simple questions. What did I commit to yesterday and did I get it done? And what am I planning to commit to today? And if I didn't get it done, what were my roadblocks from yesterday? That's it. Those are the 3 questions. They can be fast. Daily stand-up should be 15 minutes or less. And the whole idea behind it is to keep your team on the same page moving forward in lockstep. So if you have a problem, how long theoretically will your entire team, how long your team go before everybody knows? Well, maximum 1 day, right? And so you meet every day and you keep this constant cadence of communication. So when teams say, how do we get started with Agile? Well, before you do any kinds of serious Agile training, start with that. Get your team together every day, 15 minutes. What did I do yesterday? What am I committing to do today? And if I have any roadblocks, what are they? If you just do that, you'll have a significant amount of the value of Agile in a nutshell. That's first. Second is also very similar. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, just get in the discipline of this. Every 2 weeks, have what we call a retrospective meeting. A retrospective meeting says, how did we do? Let's look at the work that we got done. Let's look at our team and how it's performing. Don't take more than an hour. Focus on what you can reasonably affect, as opposed to, griping about some other department that you have no control over. Focus on what you can do. And if you'll do those 2 things, daily stand-up, every 2 weeks, a retrospective meeting, that will be a significant step forward for anybody who wants to try this and get started.
Yeah, those are really powerful practices to have that frequency to either course correct or to move forward. But just from an alignment standpoint, that seems pretty amazing. I think all of us should probably put this into practice pretty immediately, and probably also send some people out to get the official certification and training as well, and bring it back and then train the teams internally.
You'll laugh at this, but some years ago, my wife attended one of my classes as I was teaching somebody about Agile. When I talked about the 3 retrospective questions and the 3 daily stand-up questions, she looked at me as we were driving home. She said, have you been Agiling me for the last couple of years? I said, what do you mean? She says, well, every day as we're getting ready for the day, you say, so honey, what are you up to today? And how did it go yesterday? And is there anything I can help you with? That sounds like your 3 Agile questions. You've been Agiling me. And I said, guilty, I've been Agiling you. Sorry about that.
So, okay, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to start putting into practice in other aspects of my life as well, not just on the work and professional side. So I want to shift into the principle of focus, especially around the category that you're in, weight management. Of course, it's one of the largest categories, not just in direct selling, but across channels as well. And every company, especially one that's been in business for several years, such as Xyngular, is faced with the question to extend or not to extend. And you've stayed fairly focused on weight management for a while now. Can you talk about how you decide, and you've even mentioned and discussed about needing to redecide and recommit to that focus? Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of kind of drilling deep versus extending, and maybe when to look at doing an extension.
If you were to start a company from scratch, you would want to ask the questions of what's a market problem that is large and straightforward to address. If you could choose something that was, a significant portion of the population, that would be a good place to start your market. Your market size. I remember back when I did consulting for venture capitalists, and they would come in and they'd say, our market size is, 80% of Americans have this challenge. Well, there's no market that's 80% of Americans. But in the case of weight loss, especially in North America, but not just North America, we have a significant weight epidemic, right? I mean, depending on which statistics you read, somewhere around 70% of Americans are considered to be at least overweight, with a healthy percentage of them, or an unhealthy percentage as the case may be, considered to be obese. So you're going to start with a market that's very large. Well, this is a market that's very large. Market potential is huge. Now, you mentioned lots of places, lots of people in that market. So it's large, but it's also crowded. So how do you distinguish yourself in a crowded market? Well, you have to do something that other people are not doing. We don't believe in magic pills. We don't believe in magic anything. We believe that there's a certain amount of, this is just tried and true stuff. And so our approach has been what we call the systemic approach to weight loss. Systemic approach says, you're going to go about this with a system of food that you're going to eat and nutritional supplementation that you're going to need to make the food that you eat more valuable. If you're willing to concede that there's no such thing as a magic pill, you can't just take a pill and lose weight, then we've got a solution that will work for you. And with our confidence, we say to them, look, we have a 45-day empty box money back guarantee. Try out our system. If it doesn't work for you, we'll give you your money back. And somebody said to me, why do you do that? Well, why do I want to sell you a product that didn't work? No product works for everybody in the marketplace. And so if we recognize that no product is going to work for 100% of the consumers, if you're one of the small percentage that it doesn't work for, send it back. We'll take the empty boxes and give you your money back because we want to make sure it works. So systemic, simple, and a system that's not going to be something that you can be afraid of. Now, you mentioned the dilemma. It's a huge dilemma. What happens in weight loss? Well, people lose the weight. They lose it. And then what do? They lose it and they say, thank you, and they go away. Or they don't lose the weight. And then they're not happy with you and they go away. Either way, weight loss has the seeds of its own destruction, right? Because if you're successful or not successful, they'll go away. And so the tendency is always out there to say, well, how do we get into something beyond weight loss? How do we extend ourselves into something that's more repeatable? And our approach has been twofold with that. One is we want to be the best in the world at the journey from weight loss to wellness. It's a journey, not a moment. And we want to make sure that we want to be the best in the world at helping you through that journey.
That's really fascinating. I love the from weight loss to wellness and kind of looking at it as more of this holistic journey. And is that a reflection of where kind of the culture has gone as well? Has that been an internal shift to really kind of remain relevant and resonating with that end consumer? Or has that been the approach from the beginning?
A little bit of both. I mean, you always wish you could say you had the foresight to always stay relevant to the consumer through all time. And none of us really have that degree of foresight, I don't think, as much as we'd like to think we do. We're tempted as much as anybody else, right? People lose weight and they leave us. So there's a bit of a hamster wheel, and we wish that they would stay. Well, maybe if we had some wellness products, some supplements they need for the rest of their life, they would be more apt to stay with us. Well, we're doing some of that. We're trying to help them understand that weight loss is not just a momentary project, but a lifetime pursuit. But as you mentioned, we have to continually redecide to stay involved at the front door, the weight management, the healthy weight category. So many people still are there, and we constantly have that return to, okay, let's get back to this focus. I think this focus is not something that's going to go away anytime soon. I see some of my fellow network marketing companies, and I won't name names because I'm not going to say something flattering, but I know of a company that started with a nutritional supplement, and in a matter of months, they were selling trampolines. And I thought, I get that there's some exercise component to what you're doing, but is trampolines really what you're good at?
Sure.
And then they were selling something else, and eventually I saw them selling a personal care, like a skincare. And I thought, what is your spot in the world? What is the thing that makes you you? And for us, it's this systemic approach, simple systems approach to weight loss, and to be the best at this journey from weight loss to wellness. That's what we're about.
Well, I love that, especially selfishly coming from a marketing and brand background. It's all about focus. It's all about owning that position in the marketplace and in the mind of the consumer. And one of the other sides of the coin, remaining focused long term can be really beneficial. Drilling deep, really tapping into a market and a category. But then there's the other side of like, how do you stay fresh? How do you stay focused and fresh at the same time? It's more of the timely versus timeless. What are some of the ways that you continue to remain fresh while you're, anchored in this really, highly profitable, huge sales category?
The one thing we constantly remind ourselves is this. Every one of our products is new to somebody who's never seen them before. Back in my politics days, I was with a U.S. senator. We were in a rotunda there in Washington, D.C., and this woman came up to him and asked him a question that I swear I'd heard him asked any number, dozens of times. And he gave her a very thoughtful, very concise answer that I'd heard him give any number of times. And I turned to him and I said, "That's remarkable. I mean, you answered her question as if it was the first time you'd said those words. And I swear I've heard you give that answer, 100 times." And he said, "Yeah, but it's the first time she's heard it. It has to be fresh for her." So we try to keep the timeless as if it were timely. Our messaging has to be, it's new to you. It's new. This is a new experience to you. My joke is this, people all the time say, "I've tried everything. Nothing works for me." Well, you haven't tried us. If you tried everything and you've not tried us, then it's not everything, is it? So let's talk about trying us, because we're going to be new to you. Our marketing should reflect that. Our messaging should reflect that we're new to the dozens, thousands, millions of people who've not tried us. That said, we are moving some of our product development focus into weight control products that you can use for a long period of time. No product is ever done. You have to constantly refresh your products. If you think your products are done and you fall in love with a product, you're going to be disappointed. Very few products are Coca-Cola that hasn't changed its formula in, however many decades or maybe even centuries at this point. There are very few products that are that way. Most products are more likely to follow the automobile model year approach, where a model year will exist for 3, 4, 5 years, and then they have to revamp it because the world has changed, science has changed, aerodynamics have gotten better. That's us. We're more model year style products. So yeah, we have great products. We love them, but they're not going to be our same products forever.
Sure.
We're going to constantly be updating that as we go forward.
I think that's a great practice and great advice. I love the idea that it's always new to a certain group. And that kind of leads me into another question I want to talk to you about, and that's the corporate culture there. And as the CEO, you really are the chief culture officer, and you've anchored in your mission, your vision, your values. I know that that's something that you and your team there spend a lot of time and energy in defining. And I think for I think the executive group, especially the CEO, it might sound repetitive, but it really does take a long time to communicate something and have it really be, enmeshed into the company, the culture. There's always people, employees coming and going. But as I mentioned earlier, I know several people that have worked there and have worked with you, and they love it there. And one recently, a senior exec there said they find a lot of joy in working there. And it's not often that you hear the word joy. And this individual has worked with some really big brands, some other, really great companies, and they absolutely love it there. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done from a culture standpoint?
I'm passionate about this. I mean, this is something that it was part of my career everywhere I've gone, because for corporate employees that we're specifically talking about, the corporate culture, we'll talk about the distributor culture separately, but the corporate culture, you spend more time at work than doing anything else that you do in life. This is just the reality. With the possible exception of sleep, for those of you who get your 8 hours of sleep. I mean, you're here at work, and is it too much to ask that you enjoy yourself while you're here? You hear the jokes about the corporate or the soul-sucking corporate culture of I hate my job because of, blah, 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 right? I don't buy that. I don't think that has to be the norm. I don't think you have to resign yourself to the fact that this is what corporate culture means. That corporate culture means you're going to spend all your time hating life. I never have bought that. So how do you do it? Well, you have to come in and you have to do a couple of things. You have to set in stone actual company values. Now, why am I saying actual company values? You ever been out to despair.com? Do you see those posters on Despair? Have you ever been
right?
Wayne?
Yes.
They're funny, right? They're funny because they say things like, the glossy, beautiful pictures like you might put on the wall for your corporate values, but they're all negative. Now, one of them says, failure, and it says underneath, if at first you don't succeed, maybe failure is just your style, right?
Right.
And they're funny because people put on the wall these glossy pictures of their corporate values. And that's how they are. They're glossy pictures. So if you have glossy pictures on the wall, my first reaction every time I see those is, this is a company that doesn't actually have core values. Because if you have core values, they're not on the wall, they're in your hearts. Again, that sounds goofy, right? It's so
no,
cliche.
I love that.
They're written on your hearts, right? But that's what we mean. So when we came in here 8 years ago, and we wanted to establish a specific corporate culture. And so I spent the first several months observing the culture that was here. Cultures happen. If you don't go about them intentionally, they happen to you instead of by you. And that's what we had here as a company culture that had evolved over time. And so we set out to say, all right, what are the elements that we want to instill here that are intentional, that we want to say, this is what we're going to hang our hat on. And we started with four. There were four things we said we want to live our lives by these four things. Excellence, completion, ownership, and what we called no ego-ness, right? Those were our four starting values. And excellence, even as I say the word excellence, I can feel people's lips curl, like, I've heard this before. Well, we define it very specifically, and we drive home the idea that excellence is not just quality. It may be speed. There are actually four elements to excellence. It's quality, speed, cost, and scope. And you have to define what's the value in this thing. Well, that gave people some freedom to say, in this instance, it's the best quality we can get for the money we have. That's a different definition of excellence, right? It's not just do the best you can do. In this instance, it's I need whatever I can get by Friday. You give me an A report on Tuesday, that's not going to help me. I got to have whatever I can get by Friday. That frees people up to define excellence better. As we began to drive these home, and they realized that we as an executive team really meant it, it changed the idea of what values really mean. People think of values as this sort of, campfire, kumbaya, we're all going to hug each other and feel good about this. No, that's the result. it's not, it's the result is that you feel differently about how you work. And I'm passionate about this. I remember years ago, one of my mentors in life was my mother's brother, one of my uncles, and he was lamenting a company that he'd lost. He'd had this company and had gone bankrupt, and he lost it. And I remember saying to him, you know, why do you lament that company so much? And he said, I'd finally gotten it. I'd got the culture I was after. I finally built it in a way that was tangible and meaningful. And then the market had shifted on us, and we lost the company. I wish I could reestablish that culture. We all do. Go back and look at the best places you've worked. Was it the products that defined them? No. Was it the pay? Almost never. You never think about the best place you ever worked as the place that paid you the most. It had to do with the culture of the place. And you know, here's a provocative question for you. Where are you when you have your best ideas? Think about that for a minute. Where are you in the world? Where physically are you? Almost no one says, at my desk. They don't say in a meeting or you know, in some corporate offsite. They think in the shower or in the wee hours of the morning when I'm laying in bed or out on a walk in nature. They don't stay at the office. Okay, well, can we build a culture where you can be in those places, where we're going to free you up to have your best ideas and do your best work? You have to have the values, but you also have to have the flexibility in a corporate environment. For example, we don't have office hours. We're not requiring people to be in the office for a certain period of time. We never have. Pre-pandemic, we didn't. We said, look, we don't care where you work, when you work, just get your work done. We want the best you can bring. We want your best work. Where do you do your best work? We're big believers in collaboration, but we want you to do your best work. So where are you when you do that? Do that. Go where that place is. Do your best work. Well, if you're going to do that, then you should couple that with an unlimited PTO policy. A lot of places talk about unlimited PTO, then go ahead and try to take it, see what happens. Around here, we say to people all the time, yeah, unlimited means unlimited. There isn't a cap on this. As long as you're getting your work done, why do I care how much time you took off? One of the things we say around here is, when you walk in the door here, you start with a full bank of trust. That's a different environment than where people say, you got to earn my trust. Really? Am I going to hire somebody I don't trust? Why would I do that? I've hired you. I'm going to trust you. You're an adult. I'm going to treat you like an adult. I'm going to give you every opportunity to show me how good you are. And rather than start with the assumption you're going to let me down. No, that's not how I think you start a company.
Well, I love how you approach it. And I think the intentional and purposeful way that you've approached this is really, really powerful. And there's a lot of evidence that it's been successful, that it's worked, again, just from the people that I've spoken to. You know, it's unlike any other place they've worked. And these aren't people that would normally just say that if they didn't really believe it. And I think it's really powerful the way that you turned those values into not sayings framed on a wall that nobody really references or thinks about, but filters and guardrails for decision making and instruction on how we operate within the walls. And I guess, you know, now in the remote setting, you know, anytime that you're engaged in the Xyngular world. I want to talk also a little bit about direct selling. And you and I have had a couple great discussions on this. And while we're a really kind of close-knit community of companies, few of the companies even agree on how we define this community and what signifies membership in our tribe. And it used to be called an industry, and you know, then it shifted into calling it a channel. But now that omni-channel is becoming more prevalent, that even direct selling companies are going more multi-channel, that definition doesn't really fit anymore. And I think words matter. I think definitions matter, especially when you're talking about kind of membership in a tribe and in a community. Can you share some of your thoughts on this topic as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, you and I talked about the fact that I don't like the term channel anymore. I don't like that term. I know where it comes from. It used to be a distribution channel. There used to be a time when there were actual distributors. I think that's a long past term that we should retire. You used to have inventory in your house, and you actually distribute from your own inventory, and the company would replenish that. Most companies don't do that. We certainly don't do that anymore. We're not requiring you to have an inventory on hand. So we're not really, this distribution channel, it's not really what we do anymore. What we really are is we're direct to consumer. That's what we are. We're a direct to consumer company. This is the way I always talk about when people ask me what I do. I say I'm a direct to consumer company with a multi-tiered commission structure. That's it. Or a direct to consumer company with a multi-tiered commission structure. You know who else is a direct to consumer company with a multi-tiered commission structure? Insurance companies, financial brokers, automobile companies. Many of the summer sales folks, the pest control and the solar panels that come knock on your door. These are all direct to consumer companies with multi-tiered commission structures. I don't see why that should be treated any differently, why we should be treated any differently than, say, an insurance company or a financial services company. But we are, because there's this stigma associated with multi-level marketing. I don't like to use that term just because of the stigma. I get that's still what we do. But really what we are is this direct-to-consumer social selling. You can call it that if you like. But it's not a channel. It's a style of how you pay your people. That's different. I struggle because when we define ourselves as a channel, I think that sells us short. I think we're much more than just a distribution channel. We're a style of direct-to-consumer that's different than some of the other styles.
Yeah, you've definitely caused me to really think about it. I know in my conversation with Kevin Gass, when we chatted on the podcast, he said it as well. And I agree that the term channel just is no longer, accurate and descriptive in today's world. You talked about why you love direct selling and what you did, and you helped somebody really enhance their life. And that's always been part of the value proposition within direct selling. And I'm curious, as the channel, I just did it there. I did it again. I'm gonna have to get out of the habit. But as direct selling is continuing to evolve, also other companies, other platforms, other marketplaces are evolving as well, and they are also developing multi-tiered commission structures. So, how do we continue to differentiate and strengthen that direct selling value prop when other companies are starting to develop these multi-tier commission structures as well? Or I should say other platforms and marketplaces.
Well, so it's a cycle, right? At the top of the cycle, you have one-to-one. If you can imagine a circle, right? Top of the circle, you have one-to-one. I'm reaching out to you directly. You're my friend. I know you. We're going to work together. I'm going to help you with my products. As you grow your direct selling business, you exhaust that, right? So now you're reaching out beyond people that you know. In order to do that, you're now reaching to one-to-many, right? As you get toward the bottom of the cycle, you're down the one-to-many cycle. Now you're doing, broadcasts on social media, and you're sending out. Back in the day, you used to send out ads in newspapers and actual physical letters. So you're trying to appeal to a broader market. But in order for that broader market to trust you and do business with you going forward, you have to get them back to one-to-one. And that's where our model is not going to go anywhere. Lots of people are developing the multi-tiered commission structure, and that's fine. But you're not ever going to say to your financial advisor, I want to go to a convention with you. I want to have you in my life. That relationship isn't something you normally build, even as much as the old E.F. Hutton ads used to say, when E.F. Hutton talks to people, listen, remember that? Those of course, yeah. Now you see them trying to do that now, where you see them saying, oh, John and his wife want to retire, and they're sitting down with their financial advisor. Well, very few people have that kind of deep relationship with their financial advisor. That's the difference. We want to have a relationship. We want to be not just somebody who sold you something. want to be somebody who's part of your life. That's why, our distributor communities are so valuable and so powerful, because they're getting a chance to interact with people that they now build a relationship with. And the more we can foster that relationship with our communities, that's where the real power comes into this.
I love that it comes down to relationships, this trust, and also community. And I know that that's something that John Fleming always talks about as one of the great value propositions that we bring, and that differentiates us from other opportunities or other commission structures, is that sense of community that each of our companies bring. So I want to end with two questions, and I'm going to kind of flip the script. And these are two questions that are your questions. So they're questions that you've used, that you've asked, that you've told me about. And actually, the first one, I think, if I remember right, it's your son asked you a question. He was talking to you about your business, your position there, and something to the effect, I'm going to paraphrase, that if you came into your company today, if you came into Xyngular today, would you still be doing the same things? And if the answer is that you would be doing something different, why aren't you doing that? Is there anything that you would be doing differently? Again, it's a pretty powerful question. Again, my congrats, because it seems like you're raising a pretty brilliant son.
Well, yeah, talk about your son putting you in your place. He says, Dad, if you came in today, would you be fixing the things that you're doing? What a powerful question. And it's actually caused me quite a bit of reflection. And the reality is we're beginning to put into place some fixes to the things that we were doing, because, everybody lets a little homeostasis slip in, right? Where you get the hardening of the attitudes as opposed to hardening of the arteries, right? You begin to say, oh, well, this is just how it's done. That's one of my least favorite phrases. The phrase, this is just how we do things here. I'm okay with that from a cultural perspective, but not from a creativity or from a performance perspective. So it's causing me to rethink a lot of things. Every year, I take myself out of the office for a day or two. I do some introspection. I do, looking at my own performance. And one of my favorite quotes is a line that says, each man's life is a journal in which he writes one story while intending to write another. And his humblest moment is when he compares the two. So if I sit down each year and I look at what I intended to accomplish as the CEO and what I actually accomplished, and I measure that gap, and I say, all right, what happened? How do we close that gap? That process of introspection is very powerful. So the answer is no, I would not be doing what I'm doing. And now, having answered that question, I now have to fix and change the things that we are doing. So I would encourage, any CEO or anyone of any responsibility to ask that question of themselves, both personally and professionally. If you were hiring a consultant, hiring yourself as a consultant, and you came in and said, oh, would you keep doing what you're doing? Would you fix it or change it? The answer is fix it and change it. By golly, go fix it and change it. You owe yourself that. But that's, there are a number of questions that are so powerful. And maybe you'll get to the next question, the second question later. But that was a powerful one, and it's caused us to change quite a bit of things that we're doing around here.
Yeah, it is a question that there's a lot of implications in there, and that's a question that we should be continually asking ourselves. And then making, I think the important part, as you mentioned, is making the adjustments accordingly to whatever the answer to that question is. Okay, this last one, what's the one thing that you're not currently doing that if you did it consistently would have the greatest impact on your life? And this is your question, so I'm flipping it back. And you can talk about personally, professionally, or even kind of direct selling in general.
Yeah, that's the greatest psychology question I ever asked. I mentioned it to you, and I'll try to answer it for myself. So the question is, if you can identify what one thing that you're not currently doing, if you did it consistently, would have the greatest positive impact. And then the corollary question is, now having identified it, why aren't you doing it, right? Several years ago, that answer for me was I had let my personal physical activity wane quite a bit. I was an athlete growing up. I was an athlete in high school. I was an athlete in college. 20 years ago, I ran a marathon. And my joke since then has always been, every time I wonder whether I should run a marathon again, I lie down until that feeling goes away, because running a marathon was so difficult. But I let my physical activity go down. So when I asked myself that question, what one thing am I not doing that if I did it would have the best impact on my life? I decided I needed to get more active. So I set out to be more active. Well, so now what's the next thing? And then what's the next thing after that? What's the next thing after that? There's no ends to the answer to that question. One of the things that my answer to that question this year was, and this is going to sound funny, but I was not being creative enough. When I was a younger person, I wrote music. I wrote and performed music. And I taught myself to play the piano, and I loved to play the piano. And about, almost 2 years ago now, I realized I hadn't played the piano in a meaningful way in years. And so I set out to introduce that creativity in my life. I'm going to learn new music. I'm going to learn some songs. I'm going to learn to perform with my daughter. I'm going to put myself out there. And so that creativity as an outlet for me has seeped into my life and been very valuable. It's both of those questions are questions of introspection and constant renewal. And I encourage everyone to ask those two questions. One is professional, one is personal, because they're powerful questions. And when you're willing to answer those questions for real, it's that comparing of the journal. It's a humbling moment. And it's very humbling when your son asks you that question.
Absolutely. Yeah, both very profound questions and ideas and concepts that I know that we can incorporate in our personal lives as well as into our professional lives. And we should incorporate these into part of our strategic planning process. And I just want to thank you, Russ, for sharing your insights, for sharing your wisdom, for all you do for direct selling and being such an amazing example. Thank you again for your time here. I know we've all learned a lot.
Well, I appreciate it. It's an honor. I'm not passionate about any of this. So if you ever want
right.
talk some more about it.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you for everything, Russ. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. We invite you to subscribe so that you're the first to know when new episodes are available. And don't forget to register for DSU to learn from more than 25 of today's executive leaders to gain insights and access to the topics you care about most. We hope to see you next Thursday, October 6th and Friday, October 7th in Irving, Texas. And again, if you can't make it in person, please register as a virtual attendee so you can still benefit from the game-changing content and have access to the limited time replays. Register at dsu2022.com, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.